billions of dollars. NATO is a very rich group of countries, and we make the best military equipment anywhere in the world by far, and they're buying our equipment, and they're paying 100% for the equipment, 100%. In fact, they owe us about $2 billion now. They're going to send a check. Another one was sent recently for $1 billion. So we're not spending any money anymore. Biden gave them $350 billion, got nothing for it. And if you look, and by the way, we also signed a rare earth deal where we get, years of rare earth to get our money back, the money we spent. But what I'm really doing this for is to save thousands of soldiers a week. You have Russian soldiers, you have Ukrainian soldiers, and then you'll have missiles dropped into various cities and towns in Ukraine. And they're losing last week they lost 7,251 people, mostly soldiers, Russian and Ukrainian soldiers. I'm doing it for that reason. We have a meeting with President Putin tomorrow. I think it's going to be a good meeting, but the more important meeting will be the second meeting that we're having. We're going to have a meeting with President Putin, President Zelensky, myself, and maybe we'll bring some of the European leaders along, maybe not. I don't know that it's going to be very important. We're going to see what happens. And I think President Putin will make peace. I think President Zelensky will make peace. We'll see if they can get along. And if they can, it'll be great. I've solved 6 wars in the last 6 months, a little more than 6 months now, and I'm very proud of it. I thought the easiest one would be this one. It's actually the most difficult. We had one war raging, as you know, for 37 years. One in the Congo with Rwanda was raging for 31 years. We solved 6 of them, made peace, not just solved them, we made peace. If you look at Pakistan and India, planes were being knocked out of the air. 6 or 7 planes came down. They were ready to go. Maybe nuclear, we solved that. I thought this would be maybe an easier one. It never made sense, this war. It would have never happened when I was president. If I were president, this war would have never happened. But millions of people have been killed. And I'm there for one reason, to see if I can solve. This was Biden's war. This isn't my war. I want to see if I can stop the killing. Yeah.
Rare earths, do you plan to offer him access to that at all?
We have great rare earth. We made that as payment for all of the money that we've spent so foolishly in Ukraine. We spent $350 billion. Now Europe spent $1 billion. That's a lot of money. They spent $100 billion. That's a lot of money, but we shouldn't be spending a lot more money than them, and they understand that. And I think that's maybe why we're not spending money anymore. We're not spending any money. They're paying us for everything. So people are shocked when they hear it. They don't even understand. They don't even write about it. But we're not spending money, but we are spending a lot of time trying to get the war solved. If we can get the war solved, we'll be very happy. As far as rare earth, that's very unimportant relative. I'm trying to save lives.
And on DC crime, sir, on DC crime.
Do you have a message for the Democrat lawmakers like Nancy Pelosi or media who are saying, after living here for many years, that there is no crime and you're trying to start a new news cycle?
It's another reason why the Democrats lost the election in a landslide. They lie. It's just lie. Look, the crime is very bad. I think they'd be much better off saying, we want to help President Trump with the crime because it's an epidemic. It's a tragic situation. It's the worst it's ever been. And we want to help President Trump with the crime, as opposed to, he's a dictator. He's a dictator. People are so happy to see our military going into D.C. and getting these thugs out. As you know, we arrested a lot of people yesterday. We arrested a lot of people today. We're getting people that have arrest records that you wouldn't believe. 28 arrests, 15 arrests, brutal, brutal people. And we're going to have to do something about this cashless bail, because people shoot somebody, they kill somebody, and they're out on the street in less than an hour. Now, that's when it's all started in New York, in Chicago, Los Angeles. You take a look. If we didn't go to Los Angeles to help this incompetent governor and a mayor that doesn't know what the hell she's doing, if we didn't go to Los Angeles, you wouldn't have a big part of it burned down. The other part of it would have burned down too. You would have not had, I don't think you would have been able to have the Olympics. We have the Olympics. I have a lot at stake with that because I'm the one that got the Olympics. I got it in my first term, and I was saddened because I got it for what would be my third term, okay, which turned out to be second term. And the Olympics, it's a great honor, but I felt badly because I said I won't be president when the Olympics came. Well, through circumstance, I am president. I want to make sure the Olympics is great, the World Cup is great, and the 250, maybe the most important of all, is the 250-year celebration is great. So what's happening is we will work very hard. You would not have had, I don't believe that if I didn't send in the troops, I don't think you would have had Los Angeles in condition to have the Olympics. I think you would have had to tell them, I'm sorry, you're going to have to go someplace else. And if you look at the police commissioner or the sheriff, he said, we really needed them. Thank God they were here. We really needed them. That was the first 2 or 3 days. After we solved their problems, then he said, well, I think we could have maybe done it. No, he was told what to say. He said, you go back to your files and see what he said. He said, thank goodness they came. If I didn't go and put our military there, or National Guard in that case, and we'll go military if we have to, but the National Guard went there. They were very effective.
Florida Live starts now.
Welcome into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Thursday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We give you a live look inside the Oval Office right now, where President Donald Trump is speaking, taking some questions live right now from reporters. He offered some remarks from the Oval Office on this anniversary of the Social Security Act. He is now taking questions. He's been talking about crime in Washington, D.C. and deploying the National Guard. Also, this comes right now ahead of his summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin tomorrow in Anchorage, Alaska. Let's go ahead and listen in as the president continues to answer some questions.
Signal do you think that could potentially send to other aggressors?
No, I don't think it's a reward. I think that what we have is a situation that should never have started, It didn't start under me, and for 4 years it wasn't even discussed. And I could see it was going to happen after I left. I could see what was happening. Everything that we did was wrong. Everything that was done was wrong. Everybody's to blame. Putin's to blame. They're all to blame. This is a war that would have never happened.
The other question on LA, Mr. President, earlier today, the Washington, D.C. police chief issued an executive order allowing Metropolitan police officers conducting traffic stops to notify federal immigration and customs enforcement about undocumented immigrants that they encounter. Yet the city has a long-standing pro-immigration policy, including allowing non-citizens to vote in local elections.
Which is ridiculous.
And limiting cooperation with federal immigration agencies.
Right.
Did your administration pressure the D.C. police chief to review and repeal these policies? And will you require other cities to roll back similar policies to avoid possible federal takeover of local law enforcement?
So what you're saying is that it was a very positive thing. When they stop people, they find they're illegal, they report them, they give them to us, etc. That's a very positive thing. I have heard that. It just happened. That's a great step. That's a great step if they're doing that. Yeah, I think that's going to happen all over the country. We want to stop crime. I think if the Democrats aren't strong on this issue, they won't be able to do it. I think this is a bigger issue than all of the other ridiculous things that they, like open borders. Well, open borders is bad. Open borders has caused a lot of this problem, allowing millions and millions. I think 24 million people were allowed to come into our country. Many of these people from prisons, from jails, from mental institutions. This was the Biden policy, and I don't believe it was him. He was never there before. It was the people that encircled this very beautiful desk, the Resolute desk. Radical left lunatics who were smart, but radical left. And I'm very happy to hear what you just said, because I've heard that.
And Mr. President, on LA, if I may, the mother of a 15-year-old California boy was briefly detained at gunpoint in a case of mistaken identity. The LAUSD superintendent says that surveillance video shows armed agents wearing police and border patrol insignia. Given the National Guard, the Border Control, ICE agents, they're not trained in local policing. What specific steps are you taking to ensure that young people are not put in harm's way with these types of operations?
Yeah, what they are trained in is common sense, and they're very tough people. And they have great common sense, and they are highly trained. I heard the mayor of LA was saying, oh, they're not trained this way. I heard this character from where was he from? They talk about him as a candidate. He's got no chance. The governor of Maryland, I watched him this morning saying that the governor of Maryland, yeah, they say maybe he'll be a president. He's not presidential timber at all. But I heard him today talking about how the National Guard or the military is not trained in police, but they're trained in common sense, and they're trained in not allowing people to burn down buildings and bomb buildings and shoot people and all of the things. They've done a great job. Again, if we didn't send them, and very importantly, if we didn't send them into Los Angeles, the rest of Los Angeles would have been burned down to the ground. When you look at Minnesota, Minneapolis, I sent them into Minneapolis because the governor wouldn't make the call. If I didn't do that, you wouldn't have a Minneapolis. It wouldn't be, I don't think it would be existent today. You remember the famous scene burning over the CNN anchor's shoulder? He said, everything seems to be very peaceful. And behind him, the whole city's burning down. So you had the whack job governor who ran for vice president and made a fool out of himself. You would have had, I saved that city, I'll tell you, I saved that city. So the bottom line is these are very tough people that are trained in a thing called common sense, and they're also trained in doing what we're talking about right now. And you watch crime stop, but you wouldn't have Los Angeles, it wouldn't be existent today. We would have had to cancel the Olympics if I let that go on.
Mr. President, will you pressure Israel to allow journalists into Gaza to cover the humanitarian efforts the U.S. is pursuing? And
I'd like to see that happen, sure.
Would you pressure?
I would like to see it happen. I would be very fine with journalists going in. It's a very dangerous position to be in, as you know, if you're a journalist, but I would like to see it.
And on tariffs, Brazil, Mexico, and Latin America are getting closer to China, and they say it's partly because of the tariffs you're imposing those countries. Are you concerned them getting closer to China?
No, not at all. I'm not concerned at all. They can do what they want. None of them are doing very well, and what we're doing in terms of economics, we're blowing everyone away, including China. We're doing better than any other country in the world right now. Brazil has been a horrible trading partner in terms of tariffs. As you know, they charge us tremendous tariffs, far, far more than we were charging them. We weren't charging anything, essentially. And Brazil has some very bad laws happening where they took a president and they put him in jail, or they're trying to jail him. And I happen to know the man, and I will tell you, I'm pretty good at people. I think he's an honest man. I think what they've done, this is really a political execution that they're trying to do with Bolsonaro. I think that's terrible. But they also treated us very badly as trading partners for many, many years. One of the worst countries on earth for that. They charged tremendous tariffs, and they made it very difficult to do anything. So now they're being charged 50% tariffs, and they're not happy, but that's the way it goes.
Mr. President, on DC crime, sir, on DC crime, are you concerned at all that some federal officers that are helping DC police might be being pulled away from other high priority assignments?
Like what? Like what?
Terrorism, for example.
Oh, really? Terrorism? They'll stop terrorism as part of what they're doing right now. No. The soldiers that we have, first of all, we have plenty of them, long beyond what that you have here. We're just using a very small force. You know, in Washington, D.C., they have thousands of police. They have a lot of police, but the police weren't allowed to do their job. We have a lot of great ones, and you have some that weren't so good, to be honest, but they weren't allowed to do their job. But now they are allowed to do their job, and essentially it's only 2 days, but you look at the numbers already, they're dropping, and no, they're not being pulled off for anything.
Mr. President, as you know, there were some very concerning reports about crime statistics. Police are manipulating crime data to downplay crime in D.C. Will the administration release its own crime statistics to counter their misinformation? And will those individuals who are intentionally misrepresenting crime data and fudging the books, like you said, be penalized for endangering the public?
They are under investigation right now. They are giving us phony crime stats, just like they gave other stats in the financial world, but they're phony crime stats. And Washington, D.C. is at its worst point, and it will soon be at its best point. You're going to have a very safe, you're going to have a crime-free city. I mean, I say that. You're going to have virtually a crime-free city. And these are strong men, but the criminals are strong men and women, but they're strong men. And these are people that don't play games. We're not playing games. These are criminals we're dealing with, and they treated people. They took one of the people that worked for us the other day. You saw the beating, the pounding, 10 against 1, and they pounded the hell out of him. He's lucky to be alive. He's barely, almost killed. And we're not going to have that happening, please.
Mr. Tulsi Gabbard.
President Donald Trump continuing to take questions from reporters in the Oval Office right now. A big focus being crime in Washington, D.C. and the steps he took this week to put the D.C. Metro Police Department under federal control and to deploy the National Guard to Washington, D.C. I'm Garrett Weimer. Thanks for joining us this afternoon here on Florida Live. We still have a lot to get to in this show here. As we get closer to 3 o'clock, we're going to talk about the release of Madden NFL 26. It is now out. It came out about 2 hours ago, the worldwide launch at noon. Had the chance to speak with someone from EA Sports right here in Orlando where they make that game. We'll have more on that coming up in just a little bit. Also an update on an Ocoee cold case and a new Deportation Depot, a second immigration detention facility that the state is putting up, this one in North Florida, to work in tandem with Alligator Alcatraz. So that and a whole lot more. So keep it here on Florida Live. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will check in with Fox 13 digital content producer Nancy Gay for our Tampa connection. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Thursday afternoon. It is time now for our Tampa connection, and for that we go to Fox 13 digital content producer Nancy Gay, who joins us live from the Fox 13 newsroom. And Nancy, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Garrett. Thanks for having me. Today we're going to start in Pinellas Park, where a couple is recovering after police say their handyman forced his way inside their home and attacked them. Now, this happened on Tuesday afternoon, and it all began when Mackenzie Bray was home alone. She said she opened the door because she thought the mailman was outside, and that's when Stephen Hoopt got inside. She said Hoopt tied her up with an extension cord, hit her in the face with a crowbar, and punched her, all while demanding money. She was able to break free, but Hoopt heard her and then started beating her again with that crowbar and taped her up with duct tape. Her fiance, James Allen, arrived home around this time, and he said he kept calling his fiance and she wasn't answering, which he did think was strange. He also thought it was strange that when he arrived home, the door was pried open. However, he said he figured that his fiance locked the keys in the house and had to pry the door open to get inside. But when he got inside, he saw her face in the back bedroom, and he said he saw nothing but blood. even still, he said he thought that maybe she fell or something like that and never imagined that somebody was still inside the house. But when he ran to help his fiance, he said Hooped was hiding behind the door.
Hit me with, I don't know, some kind of wrench, stabbed me with a screwdriver. He said he's going to kill me, and he wants money, and then I flipped him on the ground, and I'm beating him, took that driver from him and started stabbing him in the face and the gut. He had a height wrench I took from him and busted him in the mouth. Then he grabbed a knife, and I blocked it with my hand. He cut my hand, and I took that from him and stabbed him. He tried to get away.
Now, when officers arrived, they said that they found Hooped lying on the living room floor with multiple stab wounds. Bray, though, had freed herself again and hit him in the back of the head with a chair and sprayed some type of a cleaner in his eyes. And that's when Allen said he continued to beat Hooped while his fiance called 911. Now, all three, the couple as well as Hooped, were all taken to an area hospital. Now, Allen said he didn't realize until later that the suspect had been at that home before. He had hired him as a handyman to work on their home a couple of months ago. According to court records, Hoop's criminal history includes burglary of an unoccupied dwelling and possession of methamphetamine and fentanyl just last month. He has similar charges dating back to 2017 in Pinellas County. Hooped will be taken to the Pinellas County Jail when he is released from jail. He'll be charged with home invasion robbery and 2 counts of aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, false imprisonment. Garrett?
Whew, talk about a terrifying situation.
Yeah, absolutely terrifying, especially like this woman, she just opened the front door expecting to see the mailman. And again, they did hire Hooped in the past as a handyman, so he may have even looked familiar. And then to just have him force his way inside and start attacking you like that, it's definitely a scary situation, and one that they are lucky, to have survived this, and also lucky to have been able to, I won't want to say, I guess, stab Bree, or be able to stop Hooped from attacking them further and call the police, so he was able to be captured.
Yeah. Story number 2 here, Nancy, and some post-storm permit problems.
Yes, it's been almost 1 year since Hurricane Helene went off the coast of Florida, and people are still waiting on permits to repair their homes. Back in March, city officials acknowledged there was a backlog of about 1,400 permits following Helene. At that time, the mayor promised that all single-family permits would be processed by the end of the month, with a goal of a 1-week turnaround going forward. Now, we did talk to one resident who said her contractor applied for a permit months ago, but nothing had been moved forward. She said her home took on a foot of water during Helene, and her insurance adjuster considered her case straightforward because she wasn't rebuilding this home from scratch. She was just trying to remove drywall, and the insurance check came quickly and a contractor was hired. In the meantime, she put her home on the market, moved to DeLand. Then in July, she was hit with a code violation for unpermitted work, despite still waiting for the city to approve the permit application. The city said it initiated code compliance cases at all homes damaged during Helene and Milton that lacked active permits. Now, she called the situation insane. A look at the city's online code enforcement map shows thousands of cases. In January alone, the city initiated about 14,000 cases. Now, Fox 13 requested information this week on how many homeowners are still waiting for permits to rebuild, but we have not been able to get any answers yet. However, when we reached out on behalf of that homeowner, she said officials got back with her shortly afterward. We are still waiting to hear more from the city about the permit backlog, and will continue to follow this story. Garrett?
A frustrating situation, I am sure, for so many of those homeowners going through similar things.
Yeah, it's definitely frustrating, especially we have Tropical Storm Erin. Hopefully it's not coming to Florida. It doesn't look like it's going to come to Florida, but hurricane season is starting to ramp up. So that's the last thing these homeowners need, is they haven't even finished rebuilding, and they can't even get the permits to rebuild following last year's storms. And here we are heading into the heart of hurricane season 2025. So it's certainly frustrating, and I'm sure it's very nerve-wracking every time they see that there is another storm out there, just something, something else to be worried about.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Finally, Nancy, a teacher arrested for DUI.
Yes, this happened on the second day of school at the K-8 Explorer School that's up in Spring Hill. Now, this all happened around 11:45 a.m. on Tuesday. Deputies with the Hernando County Sheriff's Office said they were called to that Explorer K-8 school because they received a report that a teacher had crashed into a fence in the rear parking lot of the school. Now, the school resource deputy was the first person on the scene, and he said that he found Philip Sire unconscious sitting behind the wheel with that vehicle still in gear after hitting that fence. The deputy said he also saw several empty single-serving alcohol containers within Sire's reach. Sire was taken to an area hospital to be checked out, and while he was in the hospital, a traffic unit deputy showed up to speak with him. The deputy said that Sire smelled like alcohol, and he tried several times to get Sire to submit to a blood draw to determine his blood alcohol content and whether he was under the influence of any chemical substances. However, Sire declined to provide a sample. And once he was cleared at the hospital, Sire was charged with 1 count of driving under the influence and taken to the Hernando County Detention Center. He had been previously charged with DUI in Broward County back in 2014. And at this point, it's unclear if Sire is still employed by that school, but the link to his bio on the school's website was broken just a little while ago when I checked it out. Garrett?
All right, well, that is today's Tampa Connection. Fox 13 digital content producer Nancy Gay, we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break here on Florida Live, and we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Thursday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. Governor Ron DeSantis and Emergency Management Director Kevin Guthrie were in North Florida today. They were at the Baker Correctional Institution in Sanderson in Baker County, outside of Jacksonville, and they were talking about a new immigration detention facility. So we know all about Alligator Alcatraz. We've talked a lot about that. Some of the court battles continuing, but they are also continuing with deportations out of that facility in the Everglades. We have known that there was an intention for a second facility, and for the longest time, officials had been saying Camp Blanding would be the spot. That's no longer the case. They have changed, moved their attentions now to BCI, the Baker Correctional Institution. They say that's really for a couple of reasons. What they are calling the Deportation Depot that is going to be there, they said it takes less effort and is going to take a lot less money to get it up and running as well. It'll have a capacity of about 1,300 people. and they are going to begin work to kind of get that ball rolling and begin the preparations for that facility. Again, they're calling it the Deportation Depot. They unveiled that this morning and also spoke with reporters to answer some questions about that and Alligator Alcatraz outside BCI earlier today.
State standard, we do not have to have climate control facilities. Federal standard, we have to maintain a climate. So we will retroactively fit these facilities to meet that federal standard. So we will have external HVAC units piping air into these facilities.
But we are not going to they are not entitled to toasted hoagies. I'm sorry, like this idiocy that I hear coming out of there with some of these, and then like some of these liberal representatives, okay, oh, are they allowed to go up to the buffet for seconds? I'm like, that is what you're complaining about? So yes, all the standards will be met. Some of the stuff that we've seen put out there about, toasted hoagies and this and that, I mean, get real. It's going to be met to standards. And, at Alligator Alcatraz, the staff eats the same meals that the detainees do prior to their deportation. Well, there's always going to be red tape thrown at us. Now, we will cut through any red tape at the state level 100%. But, we've seen, they're suing, people are suing on Alligator Alcatraz. They are going to try to find something to be able to throw sand in the gear. So that's inevitable that happens. That happens every time, we do. I hear some of these politicians are like, well, I don't know if we could do that. We may get sued. Like, I don't want to I get sued every time I wake up in the morning. They're suing us for something. And look, sometimes they'll find a liberal judge and then we win on appeal. But I absolutely expect that there's going to be folks who just object to the mission who are going to try to file a lawsuit. So the capacity is, what do we probably have, over 1,000 right now? Or?
Yes, sir. We have a capacity for 2,000 right now. We have right at 1,000 inmates.
And that's because they are removing people out of there. And that's good to see. We're not here to just kind of create like room and board. This is a part of intake, processing, and remove. There's a process that goes along with this. There is red tape, there is bureaucracy that the feds have to comply with, and so they need the space to be able to do it. So that's what it is, but I think you've seen it pick up in Alligator Alcatraz, so there'll be people there, and then there's also people moving at the same time. So the total census is a moving target, but that's really to be expected, and then we have enough space. If there's a delay, then obviously that census will rise. And then if they're doing more than one flight in a day, then that census goes down. So there's just a give and take on that. We're working with them to see if there's any way that we can be helpful to expand the removals from Alligator Alcatraz, and we'll do it from here too. We have not done any flights ourselves, right? I mean, it's all the federal government that's doing it. I think we would be able to help them with some of the flights internationally, if that's what they would need to be done. We have what we want at Alligator Alcatraz. We probably could do some more, but we were looking at a demand signal that is strong, and we did need this. And so that we were always planning on doing it. I just wanted to be sure that the demand was there. The demand is there. We've continued to operate Alligator Alcatraz for that. Now, we do know, it's obvious that this judge is hostile. This is a political thing. We get that. But we also know that we're right on the law. And if we don't win with the trial judge, we'll ultimately win going forward. I do think we'll get an adverse ruling stayed. I do think operations are going to continue. So I'm not worried about it. It's unfortunate we got to kind of deal with some of this stuff, but it just is what it is. You're doing you're doing stuff, and this has kind of been a cause celeb for folks who want to protest the Trump administration, and so they want to do this.
Timeline for construction on this, Forrest, I think we're going to be probably around 14, 15, 16 days, but again, as the governor said in his prepared remarks, we want to make sure that we do everything right. A building that's been dormant now for a couple of years is going to have some unforeseen challenges that we did not see at the naked eye. So, our timeline is probably going to be about 2 weeks. But again, we may run into some challenges. But again, we do this very quickly. So I definitely believe it's going to be 2-3 weeks. We'll have this completely up and running.
So when we had the plan that we submitted DHS a couple months ago, we envisioned more than one facility. When I stood up Alligator Alcatraz, I said, we're probably looking at another. I've been in Northeast Florida saying we were looking at doing probably at Blanding, just because we have existing infrastructure. This is just a much better deal, and so I'm glad we were able to do this.
And Governor, if I can add to that, I've been working with Secretary Dixon all along on trying to identify continuity sites. You know, again, if we have to evacuate, because again, we were accused of not being ready for hurricane season, which I know you know is absolute crap. But we have been working with the Department of Corrections to identify facilities that are all over the state of Florida. There's one here, there's one in Mayo, there's one in Chattahoochee, there's one in Arcadia, DeSoto County. So we've already been, we've been to those locations. Me and my staff have been to those locations, already identifying these potential continuity evacuation sites, if you will, that we can get up and running very quickly. So this has always been on the radar. We've been doing this for several months now. So again, this was not an after the fact, oh, that was a good idea, we should have done that all along. That's crap. This has been on our radar for quite some time.
This may be a question for you, Kevin. You mentioned the cost, $6 million to get this up and running. Obviously, Alligator Alcatraz was like $450 million. What would Camp
It's not
Landing?
$450 million to get it up and running. They're quoting. First of all, it's not going to be. They're quoting for that to be a year of operation. We're just talking about the run up. It'll be about $6 million to get it operational.
What would Camp Landing have been? I'm just out of curiosity.
So again, we had, I had a master plan, if you will, that I talked to the governor about. There is a ongoing capital outlay project going on with the barracks there at Camp Landing. So utopia would have been moving into those barracks that would have been hard-sided structures. That timeline probably would have pushed us into late fall, early winter. But again, the demand signal was there. We were ready for that demand signal either to go to temporary facilities at Camp Landing or to come to another location. That's ultimately what the governor decided to do. Again, as the governor just mentioned, it is not $450 million to do these type of things. The federal government has contracted with us and given us a grant for about $608 million that my chief of staff has been working for probably about the last 3 months now with Department of Homeland Security. So we are guaranteed $608 million in reimbursement that has been assigned to the Florida Division of Emergency Management for the purposes of running up to 5,000 beds. So the cost on what it would have taken to get Blanding up and running was probably going to be somewhere with temporary structures and then moving into the permanent structures, probably $75, $100 million, somewhere in that neighborhood. We're going to be able to come here and get this up and running for $6. So this effectively it's Doge, Florida style, to support government Doge, and that is to come in at the lowest price point, and that's what we've done.
And I think it's interesting. I'm trying to think. And I mentioned the lieutenant governor, his operational expertise, and he's obviously already been involved in rescue efforts as a state senator. I told him, I said, hopefully we don't have a hurricane, but if we do, I don't know that you're going to be in the EOC with me. You're going to be with Jim Cantore. You're going to be out there reporting real time. You'll be the first one to do any rescues if anyone needs any help down there. And so, we're going to make you expeditionary. So I'm just kind of looking at this facility, trying to think like, okay, what can we use a Green Beret for, and kind of the immigration space and something like that. And I don't know if we need any airborne ops at some point, but I know Jay will be ready.
Governor, any message to Baker County residents in the area? Is this going to affect them at all, or is the process going to be seamless?
No, I don't think it. I mean, it could provide economic benefit because I think you'll just have more people here that are going to be, eating in local spots. I guarantee you that Busy Bee is going to do even better. That's right there off the interstate, because like if you're going to the airport, I mean, that'd be the first place I would stop when I was done with that. And so I know that they've done very well. I know they've expanded in Florida. So yeah, so I mean, I think it'll be probably a positive economic benefit. It ain't going to be. They ain't escaping from here. That ain't going to happen. And so I don't think it's going to be something where people are going to have to worry about that. And if somehow there is an escape, then maybe I could send Jay on that task.
Governor Ron DeSantis speaking earlier today about the Deportation Depot that will be gotten up and running in the coming weeks, or the coming days, I should say. A couple of weeks is the expectation, as we heard from the emergency management director. The state looking for about $600 million in federal grant money for federal reimbursements for these detention facilities. They said it should cost about $6 million to get BCI up and running as a detention facility to facilitate those deportations. We're going to take a break here on Florida Live, but we still have a lot to go. So keep it right here on Fox Local and YouTube, and we will be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Thursday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. A retired detective was looking over old cases when she uncovered new evidence that helped identify human remains from the disappearance case that remained unsolved for more than a decade. And that key piece of evidence was a grocery store shopper's card on that missing man's keychain. Take a listen.
In 2022, as a retired detective, I was given the opportunity to examine cold cases involving long-term missing persons and homicides. In this case, I began by re-examining the evidence that was discovered with the skeletal remains. Contained within the evidence was a set of keys which appeared to belong to a house and a vehicle. Keychain were 2 loyalty rewards cards, one from CVS and one from Winn-Dixie. Upon discovering the loyalty cards, subpoenas were written and sent to these establishments. As I awaited the results of the subpoenas, I listed the skeletal remains in the National the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, NAMUS, the Violent Criminal Apprehension Program, VICE, and the DOE Network and the Black and Missing Foundation. NAMUS was able to complete a composite rendering using the skull and provided this composite sketch of what they predicted he looked like in life. I was then able to upload the sketch to all of the databases previously listed. Through my relationship with Melissa Pope to Samantha Payne with Othram. Othram is a genetic genealogy company that aids police departments in solving long-term missing persons cases through the use of DNA. Othram determined the skeletal remains were male, specifically to the St. Mary region of Jamaica. I was relatives whom had uploaded their DNA profile through gedmatch.com. I contacted these relatives whom stated that they did not know of a possible composite rendering, as they had discovered their family that they were not aware of. After 18 months, the Winn did a name, date of birth that belonged to the loyalty card member. We were able to match that missing person out of Orange County Sheriff's Office from 2000 to gain a phone number for his son who resides in Jamaica. And he reported him missing in 2013. With the help of NAMUS and Othram, we were able to obtain the son's DNA sample. It was a with his father, Mr. Lloyd P. Williams, Mr. Lloyd P. Williams. Mr. Williams' son was extremely grateful to the Ocoee Police Department, NAMUS, whom all worked together to give the skeletal remains his name back, Mr. Lloyd P. Williams. Pretty much the detective that I'm very invested with the families, and spoken, I would say, at least 6 or 7 times. We've emailed, even just to, give him a little bit of update, but he was extremely grateful. He had been wondering what happened to his father since 2013, and for him to finally get some closure. He's in his 70s, and he's just, like I said, he's extremely grateful to the Ocoee Police Department for coming together and, giving him his dad's name back.
Can you share what it's like to work on these cold cases? I mean, often years go by, you have pieces of evidence, and you're just waiting for it to click.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened in this case. Is we submitted a investigative subpoena to the Winn-Dixie and CVS. CVS came back right away and told us that there was no information on the card. Winn-Dixie took their time And as soon as it popped up in my email, I, jumped for joy and told everybody that we had a name. And then when we matched it to a missing person, that was exciting also. Yes, we actually, I went to our evidence techs, our CSIs, and we opened the evidence all out, and the keys were covered in dirt. We actually washed off the keys, got them under the microscope, and I used their young eyes because they were able to read the Winn-Dixie card, and that was exciting.
Have you investigated cold cases? I mean, what was it about this one that you said, I'm going to dive into this at this time?
Just, I think when you find skeletal remains, you know that there's a family attached to that, and what happened to their family member. As a woman, I can't imagine not knowing where my person is, and just to be able to hear the relief in their voice or the excitement in their voice when you call them and say, hey, we think we have a lead, it's heartwarming. That's why we became police officers, to help people.
That was from Michelle Grogan, a retired detective who helped break that case wide open and bring some closure to that man's family. Lloyd P. Williams, reported missing in 2013 and finally identified after all these years. We're going to take a break here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Thursday afternoon. Today, state leaders celebrated the kickoff event for Farmers Feeding Florida. It's a state-sponsored food bank network that is working with local farmers, ranchers, packers, and brokers to help feed families across the Sunshine State. There's 2.3 million Floridians who struggle with food insecurity in Florida, according to statistics, and the state legislature provided $10 million for infrastructure improvements and training, including $28 million in direct assistance for farming families. Here is the agriculture commissioner and some other state leaders speaking at this kickoff event earlier today.
At both ends of this, that was really thoughtful And we have a lot of our farmers here today from many industries to help celebrate this occasion. And when you think about our people in need, people that are in need of food and they're food insecure, we have many of those, millions of those here in the state of Florida. And we've worked a long time to figure out how do we put those two people together. And we've had many different ideas through the years. And this year, with the president said, hey, I want to really help people that are food insecure. I want to make sure that we are putting food in the bellies of our hungry children. And how do we best do that? And so as we look through this, and about a year ago, I visited here and Feeding Tampa Bay and such a great partner. And I saw what we're doing here in this building. Not only are we feeding families, but we're educating families, right? I think the phrase is they come in for a meal and they leave with a future. I'm going to steal that, by the way. So it's a very powerful message of what we're trying to accomplish. So what we're celebrating today is not only that, but the farmers in this room represent the second largest economic driver of the state of Florida. Over 2.5 million people today went to work in agriculture. We normally put it in those economic terms, right? $200 billion of economic output. But the reality is everybody in this state needs a farmer 3 times a day. If you value your green space, support your farmers. By the way, you can do that with Fresh from Florida also. I'll do my little commercial. But when you think about the ideal of how do you support Florida agriculture, you take care of our products. You buy our products here in the state of Florida. We passed a law a few years ago to encourage organizations to buy their products from Florida farmers. We want farmers to be in business. We want the green space. In this particular case, our farmers are severely disadvantaged in many times of the year from competition from other countries or even other states. And what this program does, it allows, working through the Department of Agriculture, it allows us to go in and buy those products and then put it into an organization like Feeding Tampa Bay to distribute it to our most needy. So at the time when the farmers are most vulnerable to the downturn in their markets, a prime example, and Dale McClellan, I have to give him credit for this. He talked to me about this a year ago and said, in the summertime, where do we go with our milk? How do we put all that carton milk that we send to schools, where do we send it during the summertime or at Christmas time or other holidays? And it makes a lot of sense. And I've been in the egg business most all of my life. Same thing happens, right? During the summertime, you normally have more eggs in the state of Florida. Same thing happens with our vegetable farmers, our beef farmers at various times of the year. How do we take that production at that affordable moment when it's the cheapest possible and give it to families in need? This program puts those pieces together.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ben Albritton. I'm currently the president of the Florida Senate and a 4th-generation citrus grower from Wauchula. First of all, I want to thank each of you for taking the time out of your schedules to be here and be supportive of this mission. Quite frankly, this mission field. Florida farmers, almost everyone that I spend time with in my life grows something for a living. And there's this character trait of farmers that is so incredibly honorable. Florida farmers are thoughtful, they're generous, they're hard workers, they're optimists. They have to be, considering the struggles that farm families go through here in Florida. They're also some of the most incredible patriots you will ever, ever find. I want to thank God. I want to thank God that we live in a free country. We live in a free state of Florida. And we have the opportunity to be able to provide a hand up, not a handout, a hand up, real opportunity for success to the families in Florida that need it. Nearly every single family in Florida at some point in time, many times by no fault of their own, can fall upon hard times, can be put in a situation, in a circumstance of need.
Great effort announced today in Farmers Feeding Florida, that state-sponsored food bank network that's tying together local farmers, ranchers, packers, and brokers to help with food insecurity in the state of Florida. That is Senate President Ben Albritton speaking at that kickoff event earlier today. Well, today is the worldwide release of EA Sports Madden NFL 26, that video game making its debut today at noon. If you don't know, EA Sports, based right here in Orlando, Madden, one of those games that is made here alongside college football as well. Had the chance earlier to speak with Mike Mahar, who is the executive producer of Madden NFL and also an executive team member with EA Tiburon. And we had him on just moments before that launch of Madden NFL 26 today. And we talked with him about his feelings, the work that went into this launch, and the new features in this year's game. What's going through your mind?
Anxious, a little bit anxious, but more than anything, excited. The team here has worked a whole year for this very moment, and they are down in what we call the war room right now, prepping to go live, paying attention to all the feedback and all the data coming in on how the game is performing. So we're ready.
Mike, take us behind the curtain. What goes into this in these kind of moments leading up to this launch and this reveal?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, aside from an entire year's worth of development of this game from hundreds and hundreds of people, the team that's down live in the war room here at Tiburon is also the same team that many of the same people who just launched college only a month ago. So we've been prepping for this for a year, even down to like where people are sitting in the room, what data that we're monitoring, and it's all in the efforts to make sure that our players at the end of the day have a great experience when they get Madden in their hands.
You talk about the anxiety of the moment, but Madden is an institution. Does that does that kind of give you reassurance, or does that add to the pressure every year?
Oh, it adds to the pressure. There's no doubt about it. But I think in a good way. Our players expect the best possible NFL football experience that they can possibly have in our games. And to your point, with the heritage we have, that is a something that we have to deliver to our players every year. It's a challenge, but it's the reason we're all here. The hundreds of us that are working on the product, is the reasons we're all here is because we are passionate NFL fans. And we make the game for the sole purpose of just putting smiles on our players' faces.
Talk to us a little bit about what players can expect as far as new features in this year's game.
Well, I mean, we have a ton of new features, and we wouldn't have the time for me to go through them all. Every single element of the game is touched. Player feedback comes in throughout the year, and so we pride ourselves on trying to update and improve every aspect of the game. I will give you two examples that I think are very, very strong, and our players will notice right away when they get on the sticks. Our MO this year has kind of been built from Sundays, and so we're taking an enormous amount of detail and data, and we are driving that into the game. And so one example is that we are using an AI machine learning algorithm that we developed here on site in the studio that takes up to a decade's worth of data. So every play call, throw, down, distance, offense and defense from every single team and quarterback in the NFL. It's almost a decade's worth of this data. And we crunch it all down so that when you get on the sticks and you're playing against my favorite team, the Bills, Josh Allen is going to perform and call plays like he would on a regular Sunday, and the Bills themselves will be as they would on a Sunday, depending if it's a third down, or if you're playing with Detroit, Dan Campbell will aggressively go for it on fourth down. So that is a massive overhaul in the game and in the technology, and what it means for the player is that it's a unique challenge every time they play against one of the NFL teams that they're going against.
Mike, I think the thing that strikes me as the years pass is just the increasing realism of the game every year, and the kind of how genuine it feels to play it.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. Something that's going by here in the video is you see kind of the in-game intros and some of the demonstrations of our team making the game. I'll give you another 2 examples of that. One, we use some technology here in the studio that it's a technology they use in the aerospace industry, apropos given our location, I suppose. And we scan in real time the jerseys directly from Nike or the cleats or whomever it is, and we get all of that detail down to the very thread into the game. So like to your point about realism, as it is in real life, it is in the game. And another thing we do is we work with every NFL team, and we have their exact Jumbotron in-stadium graphics in each stadium uniquely, triggering as they would if you were in the stadium on a first down, on a third down, or when they're trying to pump up the home crowd's noise so that you drown out the opponent's offense. All those graphics and details in the game. And we work with every single NFL team annually to get that stuff in the game to provide the very detail you're calling out.
You talk about the folks in the war room right now and just kind of waiting to see what some of that feedback is from the initial release of this. How closely do you watch what people are saying about the game?
Probably an unhealthy amount of analysis is the best way. It's myopic. We analyze every single post, every single video. We are combing the game for feedback so that we can improve it once we launch. We have our own internal data and metrics that account to, if not tens of thousands of data points on how the game is performing and the user feedback. And then we marry that all together and we continue to update the game as it's live based on player feedback and performance.
We are just minutes away now from that. What is your message to Madden players? What do you want them to know?
I would want the Madden players out there to know that Madden 26 is one of the most authentic and realistic versions of the game we've put together in at least a decade. The amount of detail, data that we've used, that we've leveraged, that is all new to put into this game, I think is going to dramatically change the on-the-field experience. And I'd also want them to know that that I am simply one person representing a team of hundreds of people who believe very, very passionately and come into work every day to deliver something that we hope puts smiles on the faces of our players. And all we want at the end of the day is for our players to keep loving to play Madden.
And that game is out now, launched at noon. Madden NFL 26, made right here in Orlando. We appreciate you joining us this afternoon here on Florida Live. Do want to let you know, just into our newsroom, learned of a Sunrail collision in Maitland. It happened at an intersection there. You can see the car that was on the tracks. Maitland Fire Rescue Department posted these pictures on Facebook. Remember, never stop on the tracks. Don't go around a lowered gate. That's the word from officials as they are investigating what happened in this crash in Maitland. Thanks for joining us here on Florida Live. We'll be back here at 2 o'clock.
Florida Live starts now.
Welcome into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Thursday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We'll give you a live look inside the Oval Office right now, where President Donald Trump is speaking, taking some questions live right now from reporters. He offered some remarks from the Oval Office on this anniversary of the Social Security Act. He is now taking questions. He's been talking about crime in Washington, D.C. and deploying the National Guard. Also, this comes right now ahead of his summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin tomorrow in Anchorage, Alaska. Let's go ahead and listen in as the president continues to answer some questions.
Signal do you think that could potentially send to other aggressors?
No, I don't think it's a reward. I think that what we have is a situation that should never have started. It didn't start under me, and for 4 years it wasn't even discussed. And I could see it was going to happen after I left. I could see what was happening. Everything that we did was wrong. Everything that was done was wrong. Everybody's to blame. Putin's to blame. They're all to blame. This is a war that would have never happened.
The other question on LA, Mr. President, earlier today, the Washington, D.C. police chief issued an executive order allowing Metropolitan police officers conducting traffic stops to notify federal immigration and customs enforcement about undocumented immigrants that they encounter. Yet the city has a long-standing pro-immigration policy, including allowing non-citizens to vote in local elections.
Which is ridiculous.
And limiting cooperation with federal immigration agencies.
Right.
Did your administration pressure the D.C. police chief to review and repeal these policies? And will you require other cities to roll back similar policies to avoid possible federal takeover of local law enforcement?
So what you're saying is that it was a very positive thing. When they stop people, they find they're illegal, they report them, they give them to us, etc. That's a very positive thing. I have heard that. It just happened. That's a great step. That's a great step if they're doing that. Yeah, I think that's going to happen all over the country. We want to stop crime. I think if the Democrats aren't strong on this issue, they won't be able to do it. I think this is a bigger issue than all of the other ridiculous things that they, like open borders. Well, open borders is bad. Open borders has caused a lot of this problem, allowing millions and millions. I think 24 million people were allowed to come into our country. Many of these people from prisons, from jails, from mental institutions. This was the Biden policy, and I don't believe it was him. He was never there before. It was the people that encircled this very beautiful desk, the Resolute desk. Radical left lunatics who were smart, but radical left. And I'm very happy to hear what you just said, because I've heard that.
And Mr. President, on LA, if I may, the mother of a 15-year-old California boy was briefly detained at gunpoint in a case of mistaken identity. The LAUSD superintendent says that surveillance video shows armed agents wearing police and border patrol insignia. Given the National Guard, the Border Control, ICE agents, they're not trained in local policing. What specific steps are you taking to ensure that young people are not put in harm's way with these types of operations?
Yeah, what they are trained in is common sense, and they're very tough people. And they have great common sense, and they are highly trained. I heard the mayor of LA was saying, oh, they're not trained this way. I heard this character from, where was he from? They talk about him as a candidate. He's got no chance. The governor of Maryland, I watched him this morning saying that the governor of Maryland, yeah, they say maybe he'll be a president. He's not presidential timber at all. But I heard him today talking about how the National Guard or the military is not trained in police, but they're trained in common sense, and they're trained in not allowing people to burn down buildings and bomb buildings and shoot people and all of the things. They've done a great job. Again, if we didn't send them, and very importantly, if we didn't send them into Los Angeles, the rest of Los Angeles would have been burned down to the ground. When you look at Minnesota, Minneapolis, I sent them into Minneapolis because the governor wouldn't make the call. If I didn't do that, you wouldn't have a Minneapolis. It wouldn't be, I don't think it would be existent today. You remember the famous scene burning over the CNN anchor's shoulder? He said, everything seems to be very peaceful. And behind him, the whole city's burning down. So you had the whack job governor who ran for vice president, who made a fool out of himself. You would have had, I saved that city, I'll tell you, I saved that city. So the bottom line is these are very tough people that are trained in a thing called common sense.